What's going on, Noah? It's CJ Wilson here with DoakTalk. The season has finally arrived. We're in the midst of game week. With that being said, we have another season of Behind Enemy Lines. And I have a special guest today, Chad Bishop, Jordan with Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Chad, how's it going?
Finally, feels like off season's taking forever, right?
Right. Feel like it's been taking forever. There's been a lot of anticipation. It's the worst time of year, in my opinion, just, waiting and I guess the dog months, so to speak, leading up until football. We want to go ahead and get started and get into, the meat of the interview and talk about Georgia Tech itself. But before we get started, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Again, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It does a world of favors for the DoakTalk community in regards to getting our information out to like-minded fans like yourself. All right, Chad, let's get into it. So Brent Key is bringing a lot of excitement to the Georgia Tech nation in his third year as the head coach. The first year was on the interim tag. But again, a lot of sparks and things like that, a lot of excitement for this program and for this team. Just talk about the job Brent Key has done in a short period of time, rallying the rambling wreck and getting that fan base together.
Yeah, man. He had his work cut out for him, being the interim coach in 22 and then taking over in 23. And for those who follow the Georgia Tech program, it was a bit of a mess. Jeff Collins came in after Paul Johnson, and things went south pretty quickly. Jeff Collins had to reinvent Georgia Tech football after the option era, and things didn't go well. So then Brent Key had to clean up that mess, for lack of a better term. And it has really done a phenomenal job. I think he's instilled some more confidence in this program. He's instilled an identity in this program. He's starting to recruit at a high level. And I think the fan base is really excited. I think they were on the fence a little bit. You hire the interim guy, you never really know how that's going to go. But he played offensive line at Georgia Tech. He bleeds gold and white. And he's really, like I said, has the energy back up at a high level for this fan base who now see that he can win and knows what he's doing.
Speaking of momentum and some of the most exciting aspects in regards to Georgia Tech, the quarterback position, Haynes King, bringing a lot of excitement to the team. 27 pass touchdowns this past season. One of the most underrated aspects, in my opinion, of his game is the 700 rushing yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground. Now, he did have 16 interceptions, but a lot of buzz and a lot of excitement. And even you, it was a tweet that you put out in regards to a quote from Brent Key in regards to him being, in his opinion, the best quarterback in Georgia Tech history.
Yeah, man, he's Brent Key and quarterbacks coach Chris Winkie and offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner. Man, they love Haynes King. I mean, he's just a kid from Texas who has a legendary high school football coach as a dad. He's grown up on the football field. He's grown up playing quarterback. He loves quarterback. He loves football. He can't get enough of it. And he had a big time breakout season in 2023. One of those, dream book transfer stories, right, where a program goes and gets a transfer quarterback. And he becomes an all-conference level caliber type of player. That being said, like you mentioned, too many interceptions last year. His completion percentage wasn't high enough. So he's got some work to do to be even better. But I think the good news for him is that's driven him in the offseason, knowing that he can be better and he has areas to improve. And it wasn't all just sunshine and rainbows in 23. There were some down moments. So he's gone back to the lab, working with Chris Winkie, trying to get better, trying to become a better quarterback. He's really become a leader for this clubhouse and for this team on both sides of the ball. And, I think he's going to have another really, really good season if he stays healthy and does what he's supposed to do.
Yeah, I got no doubts in my mind that he'll have some improvements going from, year one to year two within the program, especially with former Heisman winner and former Chris Winkie coaching. Let's jump to the running backs a little bit. You guys have some excited from Jamal Haynes, 1K rusher, first time in a long time for Georgia Tech. So speak about the running back room and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, it does start with Jamal Haynes. Interesting story. A kid who was kind of an all-purpose back in high school, but came to Georgia Tech as a wide receiver, and they went to him in the spring of 23 and said, we don't know how many touches you're going to get at wide receiver. Would you be open to playing running back? He said he'd think about it, and they came back in the fall, and he was all in playing running back, and they made him the starting running back. And, man, did he have a breakout year going over 1,000 yards and really becoming the bell cow of that rushing attack. So he's back this season as well. And then not only that, they have Trey Cooley as his backup returns. He started his career at Louisville, came in 23, and has been a backup to Jamal Haynes. He's a very, very capable back as well. And as much as Georgia Tech is going to want to run the football under Brent Key, that's big to have two veteran guys back there who know what they're doing. Outside of that, it's mostly youth and experience. So I don't know if they want to get too far down the depth chart when it comes to Jamal Haynes and Trey Cooley, but they got two good ones up at the top.
All right, let's shift focus to the receiver room. Eric Singleton Jr. as one of the receivers that kind of stood out last year as a redshirt freshman. And of course, you have Christian Leary amongst others. Let's talk about the receiver room to kind of combat, Haynes King as a quarterback. You have 27 passing touchdowns. You got to have some pass catchers to, be on the receiving end of those.
Yeah, it's an interesting group because I don't know talent wise if they would turn any heads or be NFL type draft picks right now, but I think collectively it is a very very solid group and a very eclectic group. They're more on the diminutive side. They're a little bit quicker, a little bit faster. They're not these guys who can maybe go up and get a jump ball in the end zone. But it starts with Eric Singleton, a track guy, joined the Georgia Tech track team in the spring, ran the 100 meter and the 200 meter. Definitely one of, if not the fastest guys on the team. So he's coming out off a sensational freshman year. Malik Rutherford is a familiar name to ACC football fans. He's been at Tech for a few years. Very good wide receiver. Christian Leary, Chase Lane, two guys who transferred in from SEC programs a couple years ago. Veteran presences as well. So they got a really, really good group, and that, again, only helps Haynes King to know he has reliable guys he can spread the ball around to.
Let's shift focus to the offensive line and tight end room. When we speak about Brent being a former offensive lineman himself at Georgia Tech at that. So to speak about, what Georgia Tech has to offer from the offensive line perspective.
It's a really good group, and they have aspirations to be considered, one of, if not the best units in all of the ACC, maybe even the country. I mean, 4 of the 5 starters are back from last year. They brought in Keelan Rutledge from Middle Tennessee to start at right guard, but outside of that, the 4 guys who will be up there with Keelan started last year, and then they have Corey Robinson, who played in 9 games and over 370 snaps last year as a backup and sort of swingman to fill in as well. It's a very, very, very good group. I talked to him this preseason, and it was Joe Fusel, a guard, who said it was that North Carolina game where they came back and won. They found their identity. They realized they can run the ball at will whenever they want. They showed that against Central Florida in the bowl game where they ran the ball more than 24 times in a row, and there was nothing UCF could do about it. So they're a very, very stout group, and they also have offensive line coach Jeep Wade back for a second year. You throw the tight ends in there, that'll be a question mark because Brett Seither is back, and he's played in this program for a few years. But outside of that, they brought in 3 transfers. Jackson Hall's from Yale, Rylan Godey, who's been at Mississippi State and Georgia, and then Josh Beadham, who came from Michigan. So sort of some unknowns there. And Georgia Tech likes to use its tight ends. I think it was Buster Faulkner who maybe even joked that they could line 4 tight ends up there in a formation if they wanted to. They like to use their tight ends to block a bunch, but that'll be a question mark for this offensive line. Which tight end will fit amongst that group?
All right, let's stick with the trenches and move to the defensive side of football and talk about defensive line. What should we expect from Georgia Tech from the defensive line for this upcoming season?
Well, I think you start with Des Simpson. He's a defensive line coach, coached at Duke, Miami. He's coached with the Falcons. He coached Georgia high school football for a long, long, long time. Is from right up the road in Marietta, Georgia. So has a ton of connections in recruiting and a lot of relationships. So you start with them, a new voice for that defensive front. Now, personnel-wise, they got some returning guys like Zeke Biggers and, Makia Scott, Kevin Harris, some upperclassmen, some older guys who have been around a bunch. But they supplemented that in the transfer portal with Thomas Gore from Miami, Romello Height from USC, Jordan Vandenberg from Penn State. I think they're going to rotate a lot of guys, especially until they find 3 or 4 who consistently make plays. Pass rush is a big concern. Run defense is a big concern. 2 areas they were not very good in 2023. So they brought in Jess Simpson and all these new guys to sort of try to find their way and create a different identity for that Georgia Tech defensive front, which struggled a lot last year.
Now let's move on to the second phase of the run defense, and that's the linebackers. What for the Georgia Tech linebacker core should we expect for this game and this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good one. You got Kyle Eford and Trinelius Tatum, both started last season. Both really good linebackers, especially Kyle Eford had a breakout year in his starting role. So you start there. But again, like the defensive front, Georgia Tech didn't stop there, and they weren't satisfied with just having their 2 starters back. They went out and got E.J. Lightsey from Georgia and Jackson Hamilton from, I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's another quality transfer who came in. Not necessarily to be backup, right, but to play alongside those guys, to give those guys a breather, to play on maybe specialized downs. So they really, again, supplemented the depth in that room because, you can't just rely on 2 linebackers. You have to have a few rotate in and out of there. Again, went to the transfer portal, got some good ones, and they hope they can rotate those guys in and out to make plays.
Let's move on to the secondary, which was a pretty good group for Georgia Tech last year. My personal favorite, and I got some bias here, Amari Harvey, Tallahassee local.
Yeah, well, you guys will be happy to know Amari Harvey is the best trash talker on the team. We've heard
Yeah, what
he
that brings
loves.
to the table.
Yeah, he loves to trash talk and get up in those wide receivers' grills. Even if he gets beat, he's coming right back and letting them know about it. So Amari Harvey's a really good cornerback. At safety, you have Miles Brooks and Clayton Powell-Lee. Again, two veteran guys who've been in the system, who've been in the program for a long time. They know their way around the ACC in the secondary and the defensive backfield. But then on the flip side, you have Warren Burrell, a kid who played at Tennessee for a long time. 1 year left in college. He came to Georgia Tech. He's from Atlanta, really intent on making a name for himself in terms of an NFL draft board. And he's gotten rave reviews in camp from all the coaches and the players about how he goes about his work ethic and his professionalism. And he seems to be a pretty good cornerback, too. So that's going to be big for this Georgia Tech secondary. And then the nickelback question is kind of a question mark. Georgia Tech runs 5 DBs out there. Could be Syed Gibbs, a freshman All-American at Rhode Island last year. Could be Rodney Shelley, a guy who's been in the system a while, and same with Omar Daniels, a returning player. So they may rotate some guys at nickelback as well until they find someone who can make plays consistently. Secondary should be okay for Georgia Tech. They're pretty decent against the pass next year, and that should be to be expected again in 2024.
All right, Chad, let's kind of get into the meat of this and talk a little bit as far as your thoughts on the game. What do you think Georgia Tech have to do in order to, or what do you think Georgia Tech will have to hit on, so to speak, in order to win the game? What are some areas of concern that you feel like Georgia Tech will have to avoid in order to not lose the game?
I think that a lot of this, comes down to a mentality aspect, right? I mean, Georgia Tech is a confident bunch. They want to refine what they found in December and November of last year. And I think if they do that early against Florida State, that'll be a good sign. If they come out and, you know, for lack of a better term, punch Florida State in the mouth and say, hey, we're here, ready to play, maybe go up by a touchdown, I think that would be big. Another thing is, when you're an underdog like this as a Georgia Tech team against a team like Florida State who won the conference and has hopes of going to the college football playoff, you can't make mistakes, right? You can't turn the ball over. It can't be a false start on 1st and 10. You can't drop an easy touchdown pass. I mean, all those little things add up when you're trying to spring that upset. So I think that's number 2. And then number 3, this Georgia Tech defense has to make some plays. There's been questions about them all off season. Everybody wants to see Tyler Santucci's unit and how they perform and what their mindset is and their mentality. They have to show up early and make some plays, whether that's a big 3rd down stop or forcing a turnover, whether that's getting in the offensive backfield for a sack or a TFL. I think that Georgia Tech defense has to step up because I think we all believe this Georgia Tech offense will put some points on the board, but can they stop anybody?
All right, now for what we've all been waiting for, Chad, let me get your score prediction for this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think with Georgia Tech's offense and Florida State's talent, I think it'd be easy to sort of lean toward a higher scoring game. But I don't know, something tells me about first game of the year, the nerves, the anticipation, the hype, college game day. And then it's going to be in the 60s. It could be raining. I don't know. I feel like there could be some rust. There could be some miscues. I could see this game being like a 20-17 type game, a 24-14 type game. I know it'd be tough for Georgia Tech to be held to that few points, but I kind of trust Florida State's secondary and their defense maybe a little more at this point. So I'm kind of leaning toward the Seminoles about a week out before the game, thinking that they'll have enough talent and enough depth in the end to pull this out in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, Florida State defense should be the strength of the team this year, and specifically the secondary. I'm kind of with you. To have been a close game at first, and with the weather, and we kind of spoke about this a little bit off air, going from 90 and humidity on a consistent everyday basis to kind of going to 50 and 60-degree weather out there in Dublin. That could play a factor. I'm leaning towards the game being more so a 28-17 or 31-20 type of game in favor of FSU. I think it'll be close enough in the first half. And like I said, just too much depth in certain areas for FSU. I think they kind of widen the gap a little bit in the second half of that game. I do think Georgia Tech is going to be a damn good team this upcoming year, and a team to be reckoned with moving forward with Brent Key. And speaking of moving forward, and there's kind of some news in regards to recruiting and things like that as far as FSU ties and Georgia Tech ties is concerned. Josh Petty, former 5-star, well, not former 5-star, current 5-star offensive line, recently committed to Georgia Tech over Florida State and Ohio State. And there's been some concerns, well, not necessarily concerns, but talks in regards to NIL being a factor and things like that. You was at his commitment, had a chance to interview Josh Petty. What's your thoughts on that commitment? And I guess just the thoughts in regards to, well, first of all, Brent Key's recruiting efforts, which you kind of mentioned earlier, and the effect that may have played a part in this recruitment.
Yeah, I mean it's big for Georgia Tech, not just Josh Petty, but what Brent Key has done recently. I mean, it's clear that he has some support from the administration and from the school and from the Tech Way, the NIL collective, to put some money behind his recruiting efforts. Whether that's a more of a bigger budget for visits or travel, a bigger budget in the NIL space. And that was clear in the Josh Petty case. Yeah, I did talk to Josh Petty. He was honest. I mean, the kid turned 17 years old, but it felt like I was talking to a 22, 23-year-old. I don't think this was a money grab. I don't think the young man was chasing money. I think that was a factor. Of course it was. It would be for any, young kid trying to care for himself and his family. but he knows Jeep Wade, the offensive line coach at Georgia Tech. Brent Key's recruited him hard and fair. Tim McFarland is on staff at Georgia Tech, and he was Josh Petty's high school coach once upon a time a few years ago. So I think there were relationships there, and it's right down the road in his backyard. Picking Georgia Tech, I don't think it was any slight to the other schools. I just think he felt like, I fit with these guys. They value the offensive line. I'm an offensive lineman. I'll play for an offensive line coach. The list goes on. And so I think it was a really, really good fit for Josh Petty. But he won't be the only one. We've heard rumors that Christian Garrett, a former UGA commit, could be leaning toward Georgia Tech. I think down the road you guys could hear of some other guys flipping to Georgia Tech because, again, I think they're putting the resources and the finances into going after these guys and letting them know that they're serious about football. I think it's starting to pay dividends.
I appreciate it's been a great conversation. Very informative. Learned a lot about Georgia Tech. I know you're going to go out to Dublin. Make sure you have some fun and pack accordingly as far as the weather. It might be from our weather to that weather.
All right, man. Yeah, appreciate it.
Definitely, guys. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Go Noles.